Well, we start this class, here, you would be discussing about the wetland treatment and some biotechnology applications. So this is, this the scheme of wetland treatment, aerobic wetland treatment, schematic scheme. What is generally done here is like this. If you just observe a wetland treatment system, is a waste flow coming in. Say this is, as I have said, if you remember to have said, I have said this is requires a very open land, a open land like this. Here this is what would be okay. Here you see this is what is the in this influent the wastewater that is coming. This would be discharged here, this would be discharged here, and this is where the wetland would be. Wetland would be. There are different ways to do it, different ways to design a wetland. The most common one, there are in some cases it's optional. Remember this is purely optional to have a liner at the bottom. It's not necessary that all wetlands would require a liner. If it can be, the whole thing can be insulated, so better it would be insulated. So we have generally a liner in some cases, but as I have said, this is not mandatory. This is not mandatory. Just to, well, this is what is the this is what the wastewater would be. There would be few other things here. There would be few other things here. As you can see, in some cases we will find that some substrate, say the fine soil substrates are also generally spread over. If it is a designed wetland, this is what is a designed wetland. We can find out this is the fine grained soil. This is a fine grained soil, PVC liner, non-reactive liner, certainly non-reactive, it should not react with the wastewater. This is the fine grained soil, this is the fine grained soil, this is the fine grained soil. This fine grained soil essentially works in for one very important reason is this works as a natural buffer. This also works as a natural buffer. Okay. Now here this is the wetland, this is the water. You can see this is what is the water is. This is how it would look like. This is how it would look like. So here this depth of the wetland, this depth of the wetland is about 0.3 to 0.4 meter, right? This is what I said, 0.3 to 0.4 meter would be the depth of the wetland. This is the depth of the natural wetlands. You must have seen, near any city areas you will find natural wetlands, also in the villages. It's there is not much of a difference with an ordinary pond, except the depth is shallow. It is of low depth, it is generally of low depth, and it would be, say this is what is the, we would try to keep a upper, so you just try to keep sometime upper flood level, so that the water, if it is more than that, the water would be generally passed out. Water would be generally passed out. This is an upper flood level, just to where it is there will be a pipe through which the water would be passed out. Otherwise there would be, this water would be from the top of the water, this water stream would be generally taken out in a controlled manner. This one would be taken out. This water would be generally taken out in a controlled manner. this water would be taken out of this wetland. This is an aerobic 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 wetland. You can see there's lot of sun, air, everything is sunlight. Sunlight. See, the importance of sunlight and this air is paramount. The sunlight is this because of all these wetland reactions. All these wetland reactions are natural reactions. They are not aided by any kind of agents like heat, mostly heat, or say agents like enzymes, agent like say any other substances like any other catalysts. So the total energy is derived from the sunlight itself. Total energy is derived from the energy of the reactions is basically a sunlight. See, all these reactions would require a certain energy to take place, isn't it? So this energy, the energy for the reactions would be obtained from the sunlight. So here what happens is, try to understand this. This is very critical here. What happens is, say wastewater from oxygen deficient sources. Wastewater from oxygen deficient sources will contain inorganic matter, like inorganic matters like iron, manganese, sodium, calcium, etc. in a fashion which can be characterized by this reaction, which is Fe2. This is Fe2 plus, this one is 1/4 this is what it would be characterized. This is is in a ferrous ion. So this, if it is iron, it would be available in ferrous ion. It will be available in ferrous ion. So they basically in a deficient ways. Where do these deficient sources take place? Say in the mine, inside a coal mine. Inside a coal mine there is a short supply of air, and there is more concentration of iron. So as a result of which as relatively the concentration of iron is higher than the general concentration of oxygen in the air. So the ionic state at which the iron would belong is basically ferrous ion state. Okay. But this one radically changes as soon as the water comes out of the mine area, outside the from the oxygen deficient area to oxygen sufficient area. As soon as it comes down to that, see what kind of reactions we generally expect there. You see, as soon as this comes in, this is H plus, because of this is the typically to characterize this acidic mine water. Acidic because of H plus shows that acidic mine water in combining with coming in contact with air, coming in contact with water, coming in contact with air. This is ferrous ion, oxygen and hydrogen. As it is coming out like this, the reaction that takes place is Fe3 plus plus 1/2 H2O. So here 1/2 H2O. So is here, as you can see, this is just you can multiply it by 2 or multiply it by 4 as you can find out this. So this is conversion of ferric iron. there is the biggest the most important thing is now. The most important thing is now, what is to be understood here is this particularly below ground is at pH, the pH of the water here at pH between 2 to 3, at pH 2 to 3, the oxidation from ferrous to ferric form, at pH 2 to 3, the oxidation is controlled. Oxidation is controlled by the bacterial action. And can take a bacterial action control which is very slow, and the oxidation is very slow, so it can take number of days. So it's a number of days it takes number of days. It takes number of days. Okay, it takes number of days. What happens now is at this at more alkaline pH, at pH 4, say at pH more than 5, however, this is no longer bacterially controlled. The whole reaction of conversion of ferrous ion into ferric ion is no longer bacterially controlled. This is at pH more than 5. At pH more than 5, the reaction is no longer bacterially controlled, and it is a typical inorganic reaction. It is a typical inorganic reaction that that is generally aided by sunlight and air, and at higher pH is equal to 5, we can find these reactions to take in matter of minutes. The reaction, the similar oxidation takes place in minutes. Similar oxidation takes place in minutes, but this is not without certain problem. The problem is this. The problem is this, is particularly is as finally we find this Fe3 plus is being formed, this would another kind of reaction that would take place is H2O, converting it to FeOH3 plus 3H. Okay. So this similarly another reaction that we can generally say is this 2H2O converting ferric oxyhydroxide plus 3H. What is interesting here is this one is particularly, so ferric hydroxide is feebly dissolvable in water, so it would begin to precipitate. Ferric hydroxide would begin to precipitate. This ferric hydroxide precipitation would take place, and you can see it says this is a red ochre precipitation. The problem here starts is this production of these hydrogen ions. What this production of hydrogen ions would be driving it would be driving the pH, say pH more than 5, it would drive towards pH more than say a pH equal to 2 to 3, because increased hydrogen ion produced due to in the formation of this ferric hydroxide. So, this would lead to the earlier state of 2 to 3 when the reactions is very slow. So, for an efficient wetland we have to see that we have to control the production of hydrogen ion. Only then the wetland treatment method becomes successful. So, to produce this, to reduce the supply, so what we generally try to do here is we generally try to increase the supply of oxygen in the water. How you do it? There is a process by which we can very well do this. If we can bring back the earlier slide, you can see now this can be done, this can be naturally done, a supply of oxygen into the wetland again can be done by natural reeds. The natural reeds, there are different kinds of reeds, water reeds. You have seen those, the tall grasses that grow in the water, generally by the side of the ponds. These are the reeds. These reeds, so what we have to do is, we have to, in the wetland also, we have to controllable fashion, in a controllable way, we have to grow weeds. This is called the water reeds. Water reeds. This is the type of, there is the type of water reeds that Typha latifolia. Typha latifolia. So, they would be, through their root system, the reeds through their through their root system, would the reeds the root system through the root system will supply oxygen to the soil substrate, which will generate hydroxyl ion, hydroxyl ions that will neutralize the formation of hydrogen ion and keep the pH under control. So, what the reeds through the root system will supply oxygen to the soil substrate, which will generate hydroxyl ions that will neutralize the formation of hydrogen ions and keep the pH under control. So, we can keep the pH above more than 5 so as to increase the rate of reaction, keep the reaction rate, to make the wetland system more efficient, Another method of using this is organic manure in the water. Organic manure also serves the same purpose. Organic manures controlled application controlled application will increase this hydroxyl ion, will increase hydroxyl ion, that will lead to the neutralization of hydrogen ion. Neutralization of hydrogen ion. Okay. Now, this is the neutralization of this hydrogen ion. So, this is the aerobic wetland treatment method. This is what is the aerobic wetland treatment method. In the anoxic limestone drain, which is generally comes before this aerobic wetland treatment, is ALD. We call it as ALD, anoxic limestone drain. What we generally try to do here is, we generally in an anoxic limestone drain is generally particularly related to certain kind of extraction method, certain kind of extraction method. Before it is the water is turned, before the water is sent to the aerobic wetland, an anoxic limestone drain is kept before it. This is all that. This is anoxic limestone drain. With that is why it's known as a pre-treatment method. It's a method. It's not more the major treatment method. It's the pre-treatment method of water. Pre-treatment method, or we can call it as polishing treatment. We generally call it as polishing treatment. So here it is not the primary treatment method. Is just a this is not the principal treatment method. It's an auxiliary treatment method. It's an auxiliary treatment method. What we are trying to do here is basically what is generally done here is, other things being same, what is generally done here is we generally use a capping. We generally use a capping here. Say something like this. This is where say this is where the cap is. This is the cap. This is okay. This is a cap. This is say it's a bamboo mat. Layers, two layers or top layers of bamboo mat. With say dried grass, say dried organic manure, This is bamboo mat. This is a bamboo mat. This is one layer. This is the second layer, upper layer and lower layer. Upper layer, this is the lower layer. In between the bamboo mat, between the two bamboo mats, you have dried grass, dried organic manure, things like that. And this one here is, this is how the stream is. This is how the stream is. This is what, finally, as you can see here, this water would be coming out like this. This water would be coming out like this. What happens here, you can see this, you can think of this water coming out like this. This is what is the level of the water. You see this is what is the level of the water. The water would be just touching the mat. Water would be just touching the mat. So what is happening here is, this air is somewhat being, air is also circulated to a certain extent, air is circulated, but here there is no sunlight or any other agents are being allowed to go in. So it is in a reduced supply of oxygen and reduced sunlight, very reduced sunlight. So it would be almost dark inside. So, here you would use this limestone clippings should be used here. Sometimes the limestone chips are also used here, limestone chips, limestone chips. Limestone chips. So, here this is the water, this is, if you just see this is the water, this is how the water would pass through, this is how the water would pass through, this is how the water would pass through. This is what is happening here is, this is the, if this is particularly, if the water, just write down, if the water has acidity, if the water has acidity before treatment, the acidity would be neutralized and oxygen concentration would be reduced. The oxygen concentration would be reduced, and this would be neutralized, and so increase in alkalinity will result. Increase in alkalinity will result. So, here you can see there is that, here what will happen is, here as it can be seen, this the alkalinity would be result. And so, what is happening in the first place, that reaction, if you remember that reaction, where I have said, you can see this reaction here, this particular reaction would be prevented from happening. This particular reaction would be prevented from happening. The reason is here, instead of having a partial deposition of ferric hydroxide in the wetland, what would be done is, the ferric hydroxide would be formed in a controlled manner. Ferric hydroxide would not, the water would be alkaline, so that the water, there would be the ferric hydroxides that would be formed only in the principal wetland, not before it. So, what we are trying to do is, this oxygen concentration would be reduced, the oxygen concentration reducing. So, this reaction is not going to take place in the anoxic limestone drain, would not continue to take place in the anoxic limestone drain. As a result of this, this would help in finally the total oxidation, total precipitation of this iron oxide, ferric oxide would take place in the principal wetland. So, anoxic limestone drain generally says it reduces, the acidity will be neutralized and the oxygen concentration would be reduced. Increase in alkalinity will result. This the reaction is, this one is, you can see this, the acidity is being destructed by is the formation of plus bicarbonate ion, the formation of these bicarbonate ions. So, you can see this acidity being destructed. This acidity being destructed and as the oxygen concentration is oxygen concentration is controlled, oxygen concentration is controlled, we can see that the formation of ferric hydroxide armoring. This so the ALD prevents ferric hydroxide armoring of limestone. This is what is an armoring. This is what is an armoring. Say, in all these particles of this limestone chips that would be present there, what would happen is the ferric hydroxide would deposit on top of this. The ferric hydroxide would deposit on top of this. As a result of this, the ferric hydroxide, as it is depositing on top of this, there would be lesser surface area exposed for the limestone to activate, lesser limestone to activate. As a result of this, here, so we would stop this ferric hydroxide deposition here. We would reduce the ferric hydroxide. This is called the armoring. Armoring of limestone. Armoring of limestone. The limestone, the chips, the limestone. So, ferric hydroxide armoring of limestone. Ferric hydroxide armoring of limestone. ILD prevents ferric hydroxide armoring of limestone, and as the pregnant solution of say this ferric ion will be transported outside ALD without being deposited, large hydroxide deposition will take place in the principal wetland that does not contain limestone. That does not contain the limestone. So, this says this polishing that takes place, the reduction of this hydrogen ion generally present in acidic wastewater would be, the concentration would be controlled. Concentration would be controlled with the formation of these bicarbonates. As the water would be more alkaline, ferric hydroxide deposition would not take place at all in the ALD. But as soon as it is exposed to the principal wetland, increased oxidation and high level of ferric ion already formed, high concentration of ferric ion formed, large deposition of ferric hydroxide would take place in the principal wetland. So, this is how this ALD is generally used for a polishing treatment. So, ALD should always come before the principal main wetland treatment. So, this is another anaerobic wetland treatment. In an anaerobic wetland treatment is, I will not find time to discuss this. Okay. This is anaerobic wetland treatment. Anaerobic wetland treatment system. In the anaerobic wetland treatment system, is the mine water is here in the anaerobic wetland treatment, this particularly say there are different types of constructions, that takes place. In the different types of construction that takes place, generally the column is somewhat more. This column is, if you can observe this column now, this column of say this is what we have observed. So, you can see here that what we did in the anoxic case, we have just extended it. And this is what is, if you just observe this now, this is what is an anaerobic wetland treatment method. So, this is the level of water. You try to keep, say this is the level of water, the water going out like this. Okay. This is the construction. This is the bamboo mats. This is the bamboo or straw mats. This should be organic dried manure, sawdust, say then other any different kind of sawdust, is one, say any other kind of vegetative waste, say dried fruit, say the covers, dried fruit covers, all this can be used in this case. This is what would be the capping. So, you can see this water almost completely being soaked into a medium which is high in organic content. This is a high in organic content. All this here it can be here naturally or inoculated. Here it will be naturally forming or inoculated sulfate reducing bacteria, SRBs will be formed. Will be formed. This would result in this is particularly bacteria. This one of those species is desulfovibrio species. This is a particular typical species, desulfovibrio species. This kind of a particular species would be formed. This particular species would be either naturally forming, it can naturally form because these bacteria are naturally forming bacteria. If you want to have a more controlled reaction, if you have to have more controlled reaction or specific reaction, it has to have inoculate the bacteria. You have to particularly separate the bacteria from the body of the other bacteria, keep it growing in a particular medium, then using them for growth in a particular medium. In a particular situation like this. This we do in a controlled experiment, we can generally try to do this. Now here it does a very simple reaction, that is is the reactions that generally form here is, this is 2CH2O, this is all this 2CH2O. This is CH2O. This is just to represent all the organic material present in the mat itself. This is 2CH2ON. This is an organic substance. Plus this one is forming with is a sulfate reducing bacteria, SRB, sulfate reducing bacteria. This is -2. This would finally form into H2S plus 2HCO3 minus. The bicarbonate would be formed. This is the N is, you can take care of this N. Basically you can consider this to be a single element. CH2O, 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 like that, these are bonded. Okay, CH2O, CH2O bonded. It's a large bond that takes place. You can consider to be CH2ON. This CH2ON reducing with this sulfate reducing bacteria, working with the sulfates. This is in the presence of SRB. In the presence of SRB, that we call it, in the presence of SRB, sulfate reducing bacteria, form H2S. This H2S then would react with the presence of any zinc, any metallic ion, say considering zinc here, would form H2S, would form zinc sulfide plus 2H. So this zinc sulfide, as we was discussing about this amphoteric property, you remember that zinc sulfide, this zinc sulfide would precipitate. Okay. This is an anaerobic wetland treatment method. This is just to suggest, this zinc is just to suggest how the metal cation would be precipitated as metal sulfide. So there can be many other metals which can be reduced by this, which can be actually deposited like in the form of sulfides. Apart from that, there is a continuously great use of today. This is a use of biotechnology is forming a what is a increasing area of use. Environmental, this is a subject which we today know as environmental biotechnology. So I'll not get much time to discuss in this. Let me explain, what are the medium, the typical things that we generally use here is that, for water purification or any kind of things like this, the material is bacterium supporting medium, like sawdust, say food waste, then coconut shells, dry leaves, then say also being used is this coal waste, What we are trying to do is, all these cases we are just accept this, all this what we are trying to do is, we are just trying to provide food for the bacteria to grow. When the bacteria grow, see, the bacteria is just like, why the bacteria? The bacteria are first of all, the reason is their medium of exchange of food is a liquid medium of exchange, isn't it? It's a perfectly an osmotic process by which the food, the bacteria take food. You have they generate say one area remains the high potential area, another is low potential area. So the material from one side to another flows in. Now what happens, what is interesting about these bacteria is that they would generally try to take mostly the organic material in the carbohydrate forms. They are generally used in taking food mostly in the carbohydrate forms. Apart from the carbohydrates are basic food, but they would also require the nutrients. The nutrients are a different kind of nutrients that they would take. They can take, since they can change their characteristics, they can change their cellular structure. So they might take different kind of metals also along with that. So not only the carbohydrates are the things which would bring them towards the food. Carbohydrates is what you draw them towards the food, and in the process of taking the food, it would also take away many of the metals along with this. This particular feature of this the bacteria are being used in biotechnology to particularly deal with the reduction of metals in the water. The one of this, is the very typical kind of the bioreactors are bioreactors are being developed. These bioreactors are being developed, which are used like this. Let me explain a simple bioreactor that is in use generally is like this. You can see this bioreactor. This would be a small pump. This is called a peristaltic pump. So this pump would be feeding water like this. This is a column. Grass species, say food substrate, then say soil. This is what it would be. So it would be connected like this. See, you see this flow here. This is wastewater, influent wastewater, influent wastewater. Right. Influent wastewater would flow like this. This influent wastewater is entering into a column like this, and finally this is a column, this is the total is the column here, the column that is being discussed. This particular water, as you can see here, this is the level of water it would rise to. This is the level of water it would rise to. You can see this water being continuously fed like this. There would be a filter here, there would be a filter here, filter, and through this the water would be out. Through this the water would be out. This is a continuous flow. This is a continuous flow bioreactor. This is a continuous flow bioreactor. Continuous flow bioreactor. These are the ports. These are the ports to characterize the water at different level. The ports to characterize the water at different level. This is a continuous flow bioreactor. Continuous flow bioreactor. Continuous flow bioreactor. You can see this now here. You can see this high metal. High metal. This would be preferably low metal wastewater. So this would be what would be passed through is a low metal, low concentration of concentrated wastewater. So this is, this is what is the mostly what it would rise is all these sulfate reducing bacteria, SRBs, that would be used here. The SRBs will be present, all these SRBs present here would generally try to accumulate the metals from this solution, and since this would require a particular medium of grass, food, substrate, soil, because only then the microbes would be attracted to the water. Only then the microbes would be attracted to the water. This helps to form the microbial colony where the metal would be adsorbed. The metal would be adsorbed by the bacterial cells, and what would come out would be low metal enriched, low metal concentration wastewater. There are many such areas of biotechnological application, and it's actually emerging. It's also growing in in wide areas now. Environmental biotechnology is a big area of research today, and this is one of the emerging areas of biotechnology. So and there many of those methods can be very industrially used whenever there is a water is contaminated with particularly the metallic pollutants and things like that. So with this, I come to the end of this class. Next class we will deal with soil and its pollutants. Okay. This next is the soil. We'll begin with soil, and then finally after the soil is covered, we will consider about having the air pollution. So the water for all practical purpose, water and its pollutants are practical purpose over. Okay. All right. Well, today we start with soil. As I have said, in the last class we concluded about water pollutants and things like that. We have worked in detail about water pollutants. Here today we will discuss about soil. Soil is, soil as you know, soil is the medium for cultivation and sustenance of plants, without which large living beings would not have survived in the way as we know today. Is a medium for cultivation and sustenance. There is a medium for cultivation and sustenance of plants, without which large living beings would not have survived in the way as we know today. So the soil remains, is a most important productive medium by which, on which the human culture has developed. Remember one thing, that it says today's population of 6 billion people throughout the world, if that can be fed, the single largest medium on which the food resources can be generated is basically soil. We have different other mediums, like we have some water medium also where plants grow, but that would not have been sufficient to feed this large mass of people, large population of people. Not only that, apart from man, apart from humans, there are other animal beings that we know of. They also survive on plants. So soil remains a very important area of environmental science and engineering, because it's as we will see that our understanding of soil and understanding of soil in terms of a medium for vegetative growth, that is very important for us. You will see that a large part of the soil being drained off, and it is coming, the initial block of soil is spreading into the roads, spreading into the walkways and places like that. That is where the soil is actually getting degraded. The soil structure is getting destroyed. So it is any kind of engineering excavation like related subjects like mining, then say dam construction, civil construction, and then in many cases like any kind of home construction, all these kind of industries, the typical what happens is soil degradation, the degradation of the characteristics of the soil. So here what we will find is the texture, I will come back to this, texture, structure, say volatile matter, then say organic matter, volatile matter, organic matter, structure, nutrients, the typical the metallic ions, the nutrients that these nutrients, this should lead to different texture, change in texture. There would be a texture, but the texture would be changed. That is, you would have to see that the fine particles would be missing. One good way of seeing the soil degradation you will see is that you will find that if you find in the soil after the rain, the finer particles of the soil has left it, and then you know the soil has been degraded, because that soil is not desirable soil, that soil is not a productive soil.